vanilla, and chocolate. And since you're black and I'm white, that makes it more special for the audience.
Did you say black? You called him black?
He's black.
Oh, he said it again. Oh, Lord. This racism is killing me inside.
You are white.
You are black. And the who cares? Who cares, baby?
So, welcome to whoever is listening out there in the ether. This is the first, episode of what we hope to be a continuing project between myself. Hi, I'm Damon Ware.
Hi, I'm Kevin Schneider.
And this is a black and white review.
Okay, so with this podcast, our goal is basically to talk about movies with a black protagonist and a white protagonist and kind of break down, the relationship in the film, if either character, if they're, either one's a stereotype in any way or if any of them hit any tropes. And then also just kind of the social ramifications of the movie. How do people feel about the movie at the time? How do they feel now? And is it really worth any hype if there's any sort of crazy hype around the movie?
Or if it's just people saying, it's kind of like when you hear about movies oh, this movie was so offensive, and then it's just if something from the 60s or 70s, is it offensive, like Kevin just said, is it offensive for the time? Is it nothing now? Or if the thing's completely reversed where it's I can't believe this thing got made at all. It's just become a pariah. Was a movie so bad that what movie we're talking about now is a movie so bad that it gets buried intentionally by a company for 30 plus years? Is it that type of bad? It might be. But this is the first movie we'll be talking about is Song of the South.
Song of the South.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day. This will be stuck in your head all day. You can't stop it, it never goes away. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day.
Oh my god.
It's so fucking terrible.
It's not good. It's not a good movie.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so bad, is the fact that this movie's so pretty well known for being so racist. And then when you watch it, the worst thing about the movie isn't the racism. It's the movie's just bad. It's just a bad movie.
Yeah, the plot doesn't really, it never picks up. It's just okay, we're going from point A to point B. And then here's some, we both watched the movie several times now, because have you watched it? How many times have you watched it?
I've probably watched it about 3 times now.
Okay, I've watched it only twice. And, one was already a fucking challenge. The second time, you're just watching it to just pick it apart, make sure that you get everything down so you can get your research and everything. But the first time I watched it, I didn't think it was that bad. And then around the second viewing of watching it, I changed my opinion, pretty, it's not necessarily a 180, but the more I dug into what I was seeing and how Disney decided to, what's the word? Just basically represent the post, because you said that because we were having this debate for a while whether or not it was actually
I found multiple sources stating that this definitively does take place after the Civil War.
Yes.
I've heard a few times it does take place after the Civil War. And apparently, I think the book the guy wrote about Briar Rabbit, I don't remember his name.
Oh, it was Chauncey, Ellie or some old-timey bullshit. Old white guy name. Pick one.
Yeah,
it's the guy.
He wrote the book and published it after the Civil War. And he even says, from what I could tell from how not that much research I did into the guy, he says, he tried to basically just take the stories he had heard from, I'm pretty sure, from slaves. Because I think it was his...
He grew up on a plantation?
I think this was the guy who was Theodore Roosevelt's uncle or something like that.
Damn.
President Teddy Roosevelt's uncle, one of his slaves is based off of Uncle Remus.
And all the other because I did also hear about, when I was digging a little bit into it, it was he had kind of made an amalgam of that slave that he knew, other stories that he had heard, because I think whatever he was doing, it involved traveling and seeing a lot of slaves. And also when you're on a plantation, you'll get new slaves and the nature of the slave trade is oh look, it's Slave Wednesday, we're gonna get another slave. So he used all of the the anecdotes, the stories, probably personality types of just older black slaves to, make Uncle Remus. And from there, the tales were Briar Rabbit and Briar Fox and Briar Bear, which we'll get into as we go further into the plot of quote-unquote, the fucking plot of Song of the South.
So one note I want to make is that I found a few times that this is apparently the first time anyone's mixed live action with animation before. So this is before Roger Rabbit, it's before Space Jam, it's before...
Slam! If you want to jam! I'm sorry. I'm obligated as someone from I grew up around that time to say that.
I think it's on Netflix now too.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, so it's the first time they did that, and like the reason they even did that was because this movie was filmed in like the mid '40s, so this was happening during World War II. So the reason they did the mixing of live action animation was to save money. That was the main reason why they did it, because a lot of the animators and writers, they're all fighting the war. Like Disney was not making good movies at this time. Like all his movies were saying looks like they broke even, and that was the best they could really do. So to do live action was just cheaper, and that's the reason why they did a live action of this.
Oh wow! So it managed to keep costs down because like animators were, like fucking dying, like left.
Yeah, I mean,
left
the
and right.
animators just weren't there. They're gone. They're fighting in World War II. They can't be there.
Good for them. I'd be like, well, I write for a cartoon. Like my cartoon mouse mascot demands that I stay here. It's more patriotic if I don't go over over the war.
Mr. Roosevelt, I can't be fighting Nazis. I need to write Pinocchio too.
More Geppetto.
Geppetto Origins, Wolverine.
No, dude, like Geppetto gets swallowed by 2 whales in this
Whoa.
one. Yeah, the fairy godmother was like, "You're on your own, Pinocchio. You'll never be."
I'm gonna tell you about my fairy god brother. He's evil.
Oh, of course he is. Like, what else fucking matters? So you want to jump into like how the movie starts?
Yeah, let's just do a quick summary of the movie. So, as many of you probably don't know, because famously, Song in the South was not released on home video in the United States ever, which wasn't really uncommon for older movies, because movies didn't really start becoming circulated, and like many people might be shocked to hear this that were born in the 90s, that home video was not a thing until like the early 90s. Like that was not a big thing, and so because this movie was considered offensive even at the time, like they never released it. Like they re-released it one more time in like the 70s, I think. It
was, when I was looking into it, they re-released, it was an original release in 1946.
Yes.
And then there was actually have like all of them. Yeah, so it was 1946, 1972 to basically they did another campaign run where instead of really like showing the live action portions, the most of the marketing campaign was centered around the animated portion of the movie, to be like, no, like it's a classic. Zippity Doodah this one Zippity Doodah got pushed like a motherfucker. It became like, it was Disney's anthem. Like they really did.
For a while, Zippity Doodah was a big one. I mean, one thing that a lot of things will say, this was never released on home video, but if you ever had any of those, I know my grandparents had it. They're like the Melody Disney sing-alongs.
Oh,
so you could sing, and they had Zippity Doodah on those.
Was Uncle Remus on the Zippity Doodah? Yeah. Okay, so they didn't cut that out. It was like the part from the movie.
It's just, in that context, it's just a black man walking through a cartoon world.
Yeah, having a good ass time.
Slaves, not slaves, you don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just a jolly old black man whistling to birds on his finger.
What could possibly be going wrong for black people right now? I almost said brack like I was making an accent. That wasn't on purpose. I just slur my words sometimes. I promise. Don't cancel me. Well, you can't. I'm a minority too. It is what it is.
Yes. He is the black one. I am the white one.
I am the shield against the storm.
I'm the one who can't say the certain racial slur that's in this movie.
Yeah, it's not, actually, and you would think you'd be like hard for Disney to bury it as much as it did, and also in the lead up to the movie's release or when they re-release it, Walt Disney says Negro as like, and just in like one of the press releases being like, yes, we have whites and Negroes living in harmony. I'm like, you were so close, Walt. You were so close.
Well, what year was it? Do you know? I don't know when Disney died.
Oh, dude, I can't remember, because I was just looking up like all of this old footage of Walt Disney, and he was just being it's really creepy to see Walt Disney be like, I'm all wholesome. Like, you're anti-Semite. Like, it's just known. It's well known now.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can wear all the Mr. Roger looking sweaters you want, man, but I know the fucking darkness in those eyes.
Just wait till we get into what happened to the main character of this movie and what happened to him.
Cursed. Cursed.
All right, so let's just get into a quick summary of the movie. Just because, none of you probably have ever seen this. The only reason we saw it is because we were just, we have our ways of working the interwebs.
It's 2020. Come on.
So we found it, how we found it. So what the movie's basically about, it's about a little boy named Johnny whose parents are getting separated or divorced. I never quite understood what was happening between them.
What I got from it is that, like, and I actually wrote, like, part of the dialogue down, because there are little small portions where it kind of talks about, like, it's little throwaway lines, but there's parts of, like, reconstruction, like, going on, like, in the background from what I heard from what the grandmother was complaining about.
Yeah.
But it's the little boy Johnny, and then his father, I think his name is John.
John.
It is John?
John.
Okay, John. And then his wife and then his mom, Johnny's mom is Sally. Sally. Or the slave says, Miss Sally.
Miss Sally. Miss Sally.
Miss Sally, Mr. John.
I just wrote it down as mom in my notes. I was like, I don't know.
No, I understand. So it's like I think what I gleaned from is that they're going down to visit the grandmother at her plantation. Like and once again we have definitively know this after the Civil War, but still plantations, a lot of like black help just kind of ambling around. Yeah. Very happy, very whimsical moment. Actually, as they're going as they're on the carriage ride to the plantation, you actually see like a little black community.
Caravan?
Yeah, it's like three it's like three little like houses, like and they're wooden, but they're not ramshackle.
They're
it's
like
a chimney.
They're like little cabins.
What did you picture? Like a very nice cabin from like late 1800s. Not like this looks disheveled. Like it's like very warm. It looks very warm as they're going to the plantation. Yeah, and
like if your one uncle has a hunting cabin and you're like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what it would be like.
It's like black people are in it. Yeah, like preferably usually against their will, but here nor there. It's admissible.
Hey, they're here according to their will, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
According to the rules of this movie, they're there according to their own will. Cause
they're happy as pigs and shit compared. And this movie, they're so content to probably be like. I'm gonna get into about they're probably sharecroppers. But
so what the movie's about is that little Johnny and his mom are going to live on Grandmom's farm for a while his dad works in Atlanta. Does dad work for like a newspaper?
It's a newspaper.
So he's probably saying bad things about the government or. We never really know. We never really get into it, do we?
The reason why I looked into the grandma's dialogue, because it's a throwaway line. He's talking about leaving to go back to Atlanta, which is an urban center in the South at the time. And so there was like a push for more people to move to the urban areas because of basically like cotton was still like a really big producer. So after the Civil War, like the North and the South kind of agree, like, listen, we need cotton. We need cotton mills. So we're gonna just put money in it. Fuck it. It's gonna be really big. But that meant that there was less profit in like just rural land development. So there was basically not necessarily a struggle, but there was a migration of a lot of like workers and bodies to the southern cities before. And this is like before like the big black migrations when they were it was super racist here too. Like let's go up north. But the grandmother says something to him where she's like, are you writing about those cotton mills and what should I call it, like the trades and everything? I have like what she says. Yeah. No, she's upset about cotton mills and railways. So it's like she's either really mad that, Reconstruction's happening and they're reconnecting with the North and being like, wait, why are you trying to like pretend that we didn't get our asses kicked in the Civil War and you're just so hunky-dory to like be okay with it? But that's all I got from like the plot of why he's leaving, because maybe like he's busy or he disagrees with like the grandmother about, what needs to be done after, the Civil War happened and the South has to be put back into the Union. So that's kind of the reason.
So while Johnny is going with his mom, Sally, and his dad, John, and this black woman with a huge smile on her face, who I don't remember what her name was.
I wrote in big bold letters, Mammy character.
Mammy character?
Mammy character.
So it's Hattie McDaniel, I believe is her real name. She's pretty famous for being in Gone with the Wind, and she won an Oscar for Gone with the Wind. And famously, she was not even allowed to go to the movie's premiere because she was black.
Is that?
And Clark Gable.
It was that Academy Award.
Yep. So Clark Gable, I want to say. I could be. Oh man, I should have written that down.
So
Clark Gable, I think he's the main guy in Gone with the Wind. Apparently, he was like protesting, like, I'm not going to go to the premiere if you're not allowed to go. Mm-hmm. And Patty was like, no, go. And finally, he was like, fine, I'll go. But it's like, you didn't fight that hard, man. You're the star of the movie, man. I feel like you could have fought for her to get there. But anyway, so she won an Oscar for this movie, and the hotel where they had the Oscars that year, black people weren't allowed in there. So the Oscars had to apparently fight to have her even allowed to be there. And finally, they let her be there, and they let her accept her award. But like, she wasn't even allowed to sit at the stars table. She basically sat at like the table where you fit that family where you don't know where to put when you're getting married. You're like, where to put these people? They put her like that table. She wasn't allowed to sit like Clark Gable and other stars.
She near like the busboys being like, oh, ma'am, aren't you in the movie? Like, why are you here in the kitchen?
Yeah. So they're on the way to the farm, and basically Johnny finds out like Dad's going back, and you're gonna be living on this farm for a little while. But while they're on the way there, the dad is being like, oh yeah, maybe we'll get to meet Uncle Remus. He's got a few good stories. And then Hattie's like, oh yeah, there's some good stories there.
I remember they're all, and I even wrote down like, is Uncle Remus fucking immortal? Because like, was he always an uncle? Like, was he always this old black man? Is he a ghost? Like, is Uncle Remus a ghost?
Because his dad is like, oh, when I was a boy, he told me stories. It's like, well, how old was he when you were a boy? Like, he's an older man.
And also And also for like for him to have a memory of this older black man and still call him Uncle Remus instead of like, oh, that's Remus, or like so and so did he become Uncle Remus? Did he have to like kill the original Uncle Remus to get the
It's
title?
a mantle that gets passed down from Remus to Remus.
Blood ritual for Remus. You know the time of year another white child's coming to visit the plantation. There can only be one.
Who will tell
Remus!
the stories this Briar Rabbit this time? So Johnny's very upset that his dad is leaving them at the farm, and when he gets there, this little black boy named Toby.
Spoiler alert, it's Toby.
So I don't know, maybe this is like a Roots origin movie, maybe it's not.
Oh, maybe it's like the legend of Toby's passed down. It's like, remember when the black and white child were friends? That was a time. I wonder if we can use this name ever again.
Yeah, Johnny...
Ever again. Ever again.
Yeah, Johnny and Toby's friendship. So Toby's job is to look out for Johnny.
Which once again, when I watched this movie for the first time, I was like, okay, it's not that bad because it's just a white and a black kid fucking playing. But when I did more research, like the grandmother says, like there's all these little throwaway lines that are just like when it's sanitizing. The whole movie is so benign, but in its like benign like portrayal of what happened during this time, it's even more offensive because it's saying like, no, everything's all right. Look at the black and whites talking together. It's like, no, this was still like a brutal time period for everyone. And also it's like during like when like let's say Toby was still a slave and the little grandmother was like, no, make sure that Johnny doesn't get in trouble. If Johnny did get in trouble and the family knew about the trouble, the slave would have been beat as an example. Like, this is what happens when you get beat up. Like your friend confidant / property is damaged.
And spoiler alert, Johnny gets in whole heaps of trouble.
Yeah, so each time like he does something stupid, I'm like, well, there's another lash for Toby. Thanks, you fucking
asshole.
asshole.
There's a few times where Toby does kind of like, they're like, dang it, Toby, you were supposed to be looking out for him. Like, I think do you remember that part? There's one of the women's like, dang, Toby, what's her face is gonna be so upset.
Miss Sally is gonna be so mad. Yes.
She's gonna be crass with you if she knows that Johnny's going. It's like, why is it this little boy's job to look out for this other little boy?
They may be the same age, or Toby may be a little younger. Like, I don't even know. Like, it just reminded me of reading all of this, like, these portrayals of, like, a black child was going to be your confidant, your friend, but there was never you never forgot that you were still owned, you were still property. At any point, if they fucked up, you got hurt for it. So, once again, this movie, it's so fucking boring, but the best part is just researching about all the things that it's just like, well, we're going to whitewash this. Oh, let's whitewash that. Oh, let's not worry about this.
It's best because you feel like they know it, because when you look at the way Toby is dressed, he's wearing, like, dirty overalls. They're not even completely hooked on. Like, one of them just loose. He's got, like, this little crappy hat on. He's barefoot. He's just, like he's kind of clumsy and stupid, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we'll get to that a little bit later, but, like, So Dad's leaving, and Johnny's super upset, and, like, he's crying like his dad is, like, abandoning him. But, like, the dad and the mom are making apparent, like, Dad's gonna be gone for a little while. He has work to do, and he's acting like dad. Like,
a bitch.
He's such a little bitch. You would think that...
I feel like you were struggling not to say little bitch. Like, he's a little bitch.
He's, like, 9. He's not even 9. He's probably, like, 8 or 7 years old. So it's just like, well, I mean, he has a right to be upset. But also, so in the night, Johnny decides to run away. So, I mean, Johnny's going to run away in the middle of the night, go to Atlanta when he's in the middle of some random part of Georgia we don't really know where he's at.
He didn't even pack food.
Yeah, he packed just a suitcase of stuff. So I guess that's Toby's ass now. And as he's leaving, this is the first really blatant sign of, like, I don't know, not subtle racism. That probably isn't the word for it.
Overt, like, or it's like because like describe the racism.
Sanitation, I guess.
Oh, the sanitized racism.
Because as Johnny's like leaving the plantation, there's the fire of all the black people singing one of the songs.
I had to look up if they were using real Negro spirituals or not, because I was like, these all sound like old hymns. Like,
they do sound like old hymns.
But it's just like it's the soundtrack for Song of the South. Like, they just I looked up the lyrics. I looked up to see, like, is this tied to anything? And, like, I kind of like not combined, but I looked up, all right, what's this Negro spiritual? Is it any relation to I think there's like 3 or 4 like scene changes that happen that use that as like as transition.
You see a caravan of black people with like cows and stuff
going to the plantation, coming back from the plantation, and then towards the end of the movie we'll talk about that later. But each one I looked up, there was never like, oh, it's definitely based off of this one. So they just kind of they made like a compilation of like, well, let's have this and make sure they don't pronounce the G's when they're slaves, so make sure everything's a little clipped. Yeah. like white people singing slave songs, which is
it really does, especially at the end,
which is so fucking bizarre.
The last one, especially, like the last song at the very end, it's definitely they just changed the words because that's the same like rhythm and like beat and like. I just know the song. Like,
yeah.
So while Johnny's running away and sees, black people singing and dancing and smiling and, like, he's kind of just looking at it and smiling, he keeps walking, and he gets to see the one and only, the Uncle Remus.
The one, the only, the one that survived, the culling.
Oh, God. So Uncle Remus is sitting there telling stories to, like, a couple of young little kids around his smaller campfire, and, like, Johnny's behind a tree, like, oh, shit, that must be Uncle Remus. Oh, we also forgot to mention that every time Johnny sees a black person before meeting Uncle Remus, he says, "Is that Uncle Remus?" And they're like, "No, Johnny, that's not Uncle Remus." What about that person? Is that Uncle Remus? Johnny, that's a woman. Come on, Johnny. Damn it.
God damn it. Why did we leave his brother to I wish you died of typhoid instead of your brother.
So while Remus is telling the story to, like, these little kids, Toby is one of the kids telling the story, and then when the story's over, Toby says, "Can you just say it? I feel dirty just saying it. It'll sound less racist coming from you, David."
Oh, I'm gonna make it like I'm putting a little stank on it.
Okay.
Uncle Remus, you tell the best stories in the whole United States of Georgia. Pretty rough. There's no hard R's in that, so it's not terrible.
He goes the whole United States of Georgia. So like during that long pause, you're kind of thinking like, all right, so he's gonna say the right thing. Nope. Slave boy education.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. It's just don't forget they don't know any better, and that was completely on purpose. But we don't need to get into that because everyone knows that slaves weren't supposed to read.
Yeah. So then at this point they find out that someone at the house finds out Johnny's gone. We gotta find Johnny, and that's at the point when this woman just comes up to Toby and just yells at him. It's like, "You were supposed to be keeping an eye out for Johnny." I wrote down scolded for not keeping an eye out for Johnny.
Yeah, it was one of the other, like, it wasn't like the original bitch in the in the carriage.
Yeah, it wasn't Hattie.
It wasn't big woman slave. It was skinny woman slave.
Yes.
That's how I gauged them in my head. And it's like, look up. So they run away, and not even run away. Like, so he gets reprimanded. Does he go back to the? Does Uncle Remus take him into his cabin at that point?
So at this point, they're like, we gotta find Johnny. And Uncle Remus, like, because he sees Johnny like hiding behind a tree somewhere, and kind of gives like a knowing look, of, like, okay. And then he's like, "You tell Miss Sally that Johnny's with me." And they're like, "What do you mean Johnny's? Like, where is he?" He's like, "Don't worry, just tell her Johnny's with me." And they're like, "All right, Uncle Remus, you're Uncle Remus, so I guess you can say this. you're like the top guy as far as not slaves. Slaves.
Yeah. They trust you as like a slave / sharecropper that you can watch a white child by yourself, like in your own. You have like, well, he's such head shit that he has his own cabin. He doesn't share.
Yeah,
because
he does.
Because the amount of black people that are on the plantation, they only have like 2 or 3 houses, but it's a whole.
He does have his own cabin.
It's a whole workforce of black people. So there's probably like 10 to 12 people to a house. Uncle Remus has his own setup away from all the other.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm like the rest of you blacks. I've earned my semi-freedom over here. I have my own swing.
So when Remus finds Johnny crying and Johnny's being like, "I'm running away to Atlanta because, to go with my dad," like, Remus is kind of just like, "All right, well, I'm going to run away with you," and kind of just goes along with it, which I thought was actually kind of cute, where Remus is like, "All right, we're going to run away together, right?" Yeah, and then that's where you're kind of like, wait, Remus, run away together?
Right,
it's like,
wait.
So you are a slave?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I feel like is Johnny your hostage now? Like,
yeah, no, like, that's the plan. It's like, "Yes, John, let me just tell you these tales, and then let me just put a little bit of something in your drink. Just help the truth go down a little better."
If the slave catcher show, it's like, I have a hostage here. Like, oh no, he's got little Johnny. That kid's worth a fortune.
How long has Uncle Remus been in contact with Johnny? He might have caught the black. We gotta kill him too. cut our losses. Were there snipers in like the late 1800s? I should look that up for that joke. And no, it was just like regular.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna look after this podcast is over. I'm gonna look up like what was
revolvers were just becoming a thing now. It's post Civil War, so revolvers were a thing, but I don't think snipers were. So this is when we get finally we get some relief of this weird story of slaves, not slaves, rich, pretentious little boys. We get the first story about Briar Rabbit.
Yeah.
So Briar Rabbit's pretty much the good part of the story. That's the animated part, and that's when Remus starts telling his first story, and that's when we get the zippity doo dah, zippity day, my oh my, what a wonderful day.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, it really did become like Disney's like anthem. Like that was like what they hung their hat on for a very long time, and a lot for how little they kind of like they didn't push Song of the South. So they released it for like the 30th anniversary of this, the 40th anniversary of that. People didn't really, and people still, I feel like most people don't know the Big Doodah comes from Song of the South. It really is just like, oh, that funny, that nice black man, and like you said, in the fields, just singing to all those cartoon birds. And like one of the critics for the movie, they were like, we really liked how he was interacting with these cartoons. It looked really believable.
Yeah,
like,
I even wrote that down. I said Remus mixes with the animation pretty well. Like, considering this is apparently the first time they put live action animation together.
1946.
Looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. Like I'll give the movie that. Like the mixing of the animation with the live action looks pretty solid. Like, considering we're not going to get Who Framed Roger Rabbit for another like 40 years. Like, it looks solid. Like, it looks. I'll give the movie that.
Yeah, like
this racist, boring movie gets one glimmering of positive criticism.
Really good animation, guys.
I can't just
still good.
No matter how racist or terrible a movie is, I gotta give it something. Like, there's gotta be some sort of artistic merit.
Well, because it would be disingenuous to say like, well, this movie is. I feel like you can have like both things can be true. Like, this movie is like very dated. There are so many things that like call into question like America's history of just like kind of whitewashing like tragedy and like and terror and prejudice. But guess what? Those cartoons, man, damn, they're crisp. Like, I mean, it's still the same. It sucks to admit, but it is. But this is when
the stereotypes really hit you. Like Briar Rabbit, Briar Fox, Briar Bear. Like, especially Rabbit and Fox. Like, they just sound like really messed up. They
honestly sound like fucking minstrel show. Like, if you could pull audio from like old like blackface routines that white people would do, it really is. What did you write down, Kevin?
Well, that's also what it is. I mean, the only one that the two guys, I think Bear is voiced by the guy who played Uncle Remus.
Oh, really?
I believe I forget which one it is. Uncle Remus is one of the three.
Okay.
And the other two are white guys.
Or
like, I know for a fact, I can't remember now, but I wrote down in my notes that Briar Rabbit sounds like Dave Chappelle's crackhead character.
Oh my God! Is his voice just a little bit? And I think Tyrone
Biggums.
Oh yeah, I know it's Tyrone.
Biggums. I was like, what's his name?
There's no way you can forget Tyrone. But I think Dave Chappelle's voice is a little bit higher. But other than that, like, if you slow down his pace a little bit, it is that. But imagine Tyrone Biggums, but like he just escaped from like a plantation, and you have Briar Rabbit's voice, which is once again even more fucked up because I actually read some of the Tales of Briar Rabbit, and the dialogue is not like that. Like, there's only a couple instances when Uncle Remus is describing like what's happening to Briar Fox, Briar Bear, and Briar Rabbit. It's like, oh, the masters and misses and all that shit pops up. But when Briar Rabbit's talking in the actual like the subject like that they pulled from, they hyped it. They went above and beyond to make it worse. They didn't have to make it worse, but they chose to.
I mean, Dumbo came out before this, and Jim Crow and the Crows sounded the way they sounded, so they pretty much are kind of like that.
To be fair, though, still my favorite part of Dumbo is that entire scene. My dad would just be like, he was like, see this shit, Damon? You see this right here? This is what they think of us. This is what Disney thinks of us.
Oh, Dad, this is kind of what they thought of us 60 years ago. People don't change.
Anti-Semitic then, racist now. It's all the same shit.
So this is also another thing that people kind of bring up with the metaphors. So like because the whole thing is just Uncle Remus is basically using stories about Briar Rabbit to how it'll affect Johnny today. So it's like, Johnny wants to do this. Well, Briar Rabbit tried to do that, and this is how it worked out for him. That's kind of the whole point of the Briar Rabbit story. So this story is, Johnny wants to run away.
They're all morality tales.
Yeah, they're all morality tales.
How you should like face your problems. Like, this is what happens when you do this. Like you said, this is what happens when you do that. And make sure you're not black, Johnny.
And another thing is, the stories of Briar Rabbit have existed for centuries. Like, these are from like African folklore. Like like Anansi the spider stories are kind of Briar Rabbit stories. So like, this is where it starts to get kind of really messed up, because the first story, which can be a metaphor for slavery, which, I mean, the movie, I don't know if the movie's saying it or not, but like, it can easily be saying that, because the whole point of the first story is that Briar Rabbit wants to run away from his briar patch because it's brought him nothing but trouble, and he wants to run away from home. And the moral of the story is, just to tell you at the end of that, is oh, you shouldn't run away from home, because home is like your home. And it's like, now, if you hear that just from a story standpoint, you're like, okay, but then when you hear it being told to you by someone who you think is a slave, it's like, Are you telling me that like I'm picturing like a slave telling other slaves this, like, don't run away from the plantation or it could be worse, because that's basically what the point of the story is, where it's like, what the fuck?
And like to that point, like when I was like doing research, like were these Negro spirituals or not, like for the soundtrack, like they're like one of the last songs is when they're fucking, one of the taglines is like it's talking about cotton. And like comes up, oh, the weevil in the cotton, like there's evil in there, and then when the cotton is like, you can't. Basically, the song is like, if you can't harvest this cotton, there's no food on the table. And then they're talking about like you sing to block out the cold and the misery, but like it's still your home. You never leave because like like it's your home. Like it's. Like the movie keeps reaffirming over and over again through like very subtle means, like through like the visual metaphor of like the fucking story, or just background music where it's just like, oh, it's like one small part of the soundtrack. It's only a minute 20 seconds, but they hammer home like, hey, everything's fine. It's not perfect, but just stay. Like it's you. This is what you're used to. You shouldn't want to strive for anything more. And it's like I said, watching the first time, I did not think too much about it, but the second time, this movie has pissed me off. Like, I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah, I'll never watch this again. Unless there's some miraculous reason for me to watch it again.
If we do a commentary track for money, we might.
Maybe.
But other than that, fuck that movie.
No,
fuck this movie.
So another thing I took note of is so the story of Briar Rabbit in this context is Briar Rabbit's going to run away from the briar patch, and while he's running away, he's kind of like skipping about and zippity-doo-dying his day, and he gets caught in a rabbit trap. Rabbit trap, I guess it would be. Like, he gets caught in a trap.
It's like a noose where it's like he's like hanging down, it's like bobbing up and down.
He gets caught in a trap, and then that trap was placed by Briar Fox, and Briar Fox, as a fox would do, is coming to eat him. So Briar Rabbit's like freaking out, trying to get out, doing everything he can to get out, and the more he struggles, the harder it is to get out. And then while he's doing that, Briar Bear shows up, who's just the big, dopey character.
He's just always about to fall asleep. Yeah, constantly. That voice as a personality. you got Briar Bear.
God. Yeah, so like that's when Briar Rabbit's kind of smartness comes in, where he's like, Briar Rabbit realizes you can't just get out of this, you need to have someone help you, or you need to trick them. Because the other thing about Briar Rabbit is he's a trickster. That's kind of like a lot of his stories are about him being a trickster, which again
dates back to like African folklore.
Kind of also African folklore, and also kind of is a negative reflection too. But
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of just looked at Briar Rabbit as being like Loki.
Okay. He's like God. He's just trapped in this briar patch. It's like
Odin tricked him to make him a rabbit, and now he's just being Loki. So he tricks Bear into switching the spot by being like pulling like a Tom Sawyer on, being like, "What are you doing up there?" He's like, "Oh, I'm actually getting paid $1 a minute." And Briar Bear's all like, $1 a minute? I need to get me some of that. And it's like, all right, now switch places with me. And they switch places, and Briar Fox finally shows up, and he's just like, even his voice is even so.
What are we doing here? What going on? What happened? What's going on? Come on! Where's my deal? Just like it's like Chris Tucker, but he ups the racist like language and how black people talk. It's just that's Brian Fox reminded me of that cadence.
Put like a young Chris Rock on helium and speed.
Yeah, wait,
no,
Chris Tucker.
No, Chris Tucker.
You fucking bigot!
Oh no!
Yes, I caught him. I caught him.
Damn it! Episode 1, I'm already fucking found out. Son of a bitch. Chris Rock's got that kind of voice too, though.
He does. He can get in the upper registers. Yeah. It was also the same person. Such a perfect trap. Yes, I'll do it with other white people. Note to self. Who's in Rush Hour? I think Chris Rock. I fucking know it.
Piece of shit.
Call the police.
Well, Don Cheadle's in the second one. We're not talking about Don Cheadle.
Oh, god damn.
All right, so Briar Rabbit escapes the trap, run back home. Moral of the story, don't run away from home. Which is very important to Johnny. And then, as the story's over, we go back to the boring live-action bullshit.
Even, like, the briar patch being his home, like, it's all these thorns and shit.
Yeah.
And it's like just, you would rather be uncomfortable and know that you're always going to be hurting yourself. And, like, is that a metaphor for, like, the brambles of cotton? Like, it just, the more you think about, like, all this, like I said, visual imagery, it's like, God damn it.
For these people not being slaves, they really seem like slaves.
They really do. They really, really do. It's so
the one documentary I watched, the one guy is like a film historian. He's like, well, they're not slaves, so I don't know why everyone gets slaves. Like, they're actually free, and based on where they were, they would have been free for a while. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
Like, a while? What do you mean, like 10, 15 years? Is that a while, dude? Like, how long does it take to, like, get, like, you're a 3/5 a person, and then 15 years later, they're like, oh, everything's hunky-dory. Like, no, you dumb piece of shit. We're still dealing with this bullshit today, so
Yeah. So like, oh yeah, that guy's singing it. So like, where he belongs, quote. That's also what Remus says. He says, quote, where he belongs. I put that in quotations.
All right.
Yeah. So then Johnny learns, you shouldn't run away, and Remus kind of like leads into it, being like, okay, now we're running away. Let's start getting food together. And Johnny's like, oh, actually, I don't think we should. And Remus like, what do you mean? I thought we were running away. Let's do it. Is that? And Johnny's like, actually, I don't think so. He's like,
pull the trigger, Johnny. Are we leaving or not?
Damn it, I'm just an old man. You're a little boy. You got to make the hard decisions. So they just decide, so finally Johnny's like, I'm not going to run away. And Remus is like, okay, if you say so. And then finally Remus takes him back to the thing. And they're like, oh my gosh, Johnny, I'm so worried about you. Oh, that's the other great part. So while Mom is worried about her son, not infant son, but like very young son.
Fucking acts like a baby.
Probably between the ages of 6 and 9, I'll say how old this kid is. And like, she's so worried about her son, he ran out in the middle of the night. Now, he's probably been out for a while. I mean, Remus he had time to leave this place, be found by Remus, have Remus tell him a long story that probably took about like 15 and 20 minutes. This mom is so worried about her son. All she's doing is pacing up and down a porch to send the help to do it. So all these people are looking for her son. It's like, if you're that worried about your son, go look for him. Be a mom.
Yeah, no. Well, if you're a plantation, why be a mom when you have like 5 black moms? You have 5 black moms that can go off on like a pattern and just be like, did we do a button hook formation? We're going to go here. I don't feel like getting my dress dirty.
And I don't know why, but, and then like, for some reason after that, I just write, Toby is really dumb. I don't know why I wrote that. Was
it like, at what part?
This is the part where they all come back, and I think it's like, oh yeah, Johnny was just out with me, and I think Toby reveals to the mom like, oh, he was gonna run away, but Remus told him a story and he convinced him not to, and it was like implied with all the black people being like, Toby, damn it, we're leaving that out intentionally, man, and like Toby just didn't get it because first of all he's a child, and second off they were just another moment of being like, Toby's stupid, because this movie loves to show how stupid Toby is throughout this entire movie.
He's so precocious.
Yeah,
like they're trying to like play off like his lack of intelligence and being like, isn't it adorable?
Look how cute he is. He's young and stupid.
Look at him try to be a person. Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah. So then that's when So then the Remus kind of gives the grandma advice, being like, oh, we should watch out for Johnny. Basically, part of the main moral of the story should really be like, hey, parent your kids. Because Remus kind of says to the grandma, I'm like, maybe his mother should talk to him about what's going on. Or his father.
Where's his dad?
Yeah, like someone should talk to him. This kid has something going on. And the grandma says, if I wanted your advice, I'll ask for it.
Oh, I think I took a note of that too.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was like, well, careful, Remus.
Yeah. And then Remus even kind of says like, but we're cool, right?
I said for that, I was like, careful there, Remus, or you'll be singing Whippity Doo Dah before the day's out. Because I was like, whoa, you're towing the line right now, Uncle Remus. Like, you're probably not a slave, but you're still a black man in the South talking to the mistress of the plantation. Like this.
Yeah, Grandpa's not around. You never see Grandpa.
Oh, Grandpa doesn't.
But Grandmom's in this movie though. Grandmom's cool though.
Mm-hmm. She's more cool than
Even
Mom.
though, putting all the racism aside and like the subtle this and that, like as far as the movie portrays it, the Grandmom's very nice to Remus. Like Remus kind of says like, we're cool, right? And Grandma's like, oh yeah, we're cool.
Yeah.
My daughter doesn't know how to parent her kid. Like, you're the one doing more work. I appreciate you helping me out.
Shit, Remus, you're my guy. Like this bitch, you live with me. I see this bitch like every other year sometimes because like, oh, we're racist and the North is progressive and shit.
I love you so much, Uncle Tom. I mean, Uncle Remus.
oh, you always get me with that. And she's walking away like, fucking.
Oh god.
I'll be the one to inherit this plantation one day.
I've been into this too. So then when they finally, like, Remus kind of walks back to his cabin and everyone's back in the house and Grandma's like, finally, I can get some sleep. And, like, everyone goes back in the house. I write, Johnny sits at the windowsill and creepily watches Remus walk away with a big smile on his face.
Yeah, because he misses, like, any male authority, so he's like, oh, some man that pay attention to me.
Pretty much.
Thank God I have half of a family.
So
the other half.
So in the morning, Toby,
dumbass.
This child is coming in with like, I guess it's like a washcloth and like a bunch of other stuff because
like a bin.
Not a slave, not a slave. He's just bringing in supplies for this little boy to clean up and do this and that.
You know how your friends wake you up with like towels and stuff.
Yeah,
after a sleepover.
Yeah, David. One time I slept over, and you just came over with like a washcloth and like all this stuff, and you were like, "We got to get you clean." And I was like, "Okay, Damon,
you have a party, Mr. Kevin."
Why do you keep calling me Mister? You've never what?
Dude, this is how friends hang out. Like, you ever hung out with a black person before? This is what happened. You haven't seen Song of the South, Kevin?
Not like this.
Not like this.
So at this point, like, the other thing they talk about early on, we kind of forgot to mention, is that Johnny's dad liked to catch frogs down by like the pond. So that was one thing. Johnny's like, "Oh boy, I can't wait to be catching some frogs with."
Oh, you're
somebody."
talking about when they're initially going at the
Yeah.
very beginning of the movie when they're going to the plantation in the carriage. He's like, "Well, listen, there's tons of frogs. You rip it, and rip it.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah, and they're like, "No, they don't come to me, do they?" He's like, I'll promise, Johnny. I promise I'll never leave you too."
Just getting a pack of cigarettes. I'll be right back. But they do that a lot too. They do the voice of like, the frogs that go like, but like they do this weird impression of a frog.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? They're like,
maybe in maybe in 1946, like there was a different breed of frogs, whereas like the frogs don't sound world's changed. Frogs don't sound like gruff men anymore.
frogs don't go ribbit. They go. They made this weird sound. Like Johnny's like,
yeah,
what the hell?
It's fucking creepy. I do remember that being like, this is a very aggressive frog noise that everyone's making. It's kind of like in Always Sunny, where it's like, you sound like a chicken. Oh no, it's not Always Sunny, it's Arrested Development. Like, you sound like a chicken. It's like, what chicken are you guys talking about? That's what I felt about this frog description. It's like, wait, is it Southern frogs? It's like, what's happening, goddammit?
So when Toby comes in, he finally realizes like, look, I caught a frog. And Johnny's like, oh, so cool, frog. And the frog just keeps like flying out of the bowl to a point where I feel like there's just a man under that bowl throwing the frog in the air because how weirdly he was jumping.
Yeah, it's very a lot of thrust for the fucking frog. And then the mom comes in, and then they're playing like keep away with the frog, even though I don't think the mom is paying enough attention to her child to care that they have a plan to play. It isn't like is it a party that he has to go to, or like why does he have to get dressed up?
I think guests are coming.
So
it's like put on this outfit because like the guest who's coming got you this outfit. And this outfit's like this cute little dandy outfit with like
that lace
like
collar.
That lace collar.
Damn, I picture that lace under so many fucking like beautiful teacups and ceramic.
Yeah.
I was like, why?
I imagine on my grandma's table. That's where I imagine it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like,
but it's on this boy's collar.
Yeah, and he's not happy about it, as boys are wont to do with lace.
So while Johnny's like reluctantly getting this on, like Toby's struggling to like keep a hold of the frog. He keeps like jumping away from him. And like the one joke is he puts it on his head and then he goes to put the hat on it, but the frog jumps away before it's the hat on. So like Toby's looking for this frog.
Yeah.
While Johnny's laughing and Mom's not aware of anything that's happening.
It's a whole bit.
It's a hoot. This is the comedy of the movie. Isn't that funny? They have a frog and they can't keep a hold of it.
He's not a slave.
Not a slave. He's hilarious. Oh my god, they just can't keep that frog. This is the comedy. This is what's entertaining.
Yeah, like we need more animators.
Oh my god. So, oh my god, this fucking movie. So at this point, I guess the guests came already, or they didn't come, because now Johnny's just outside in his little outfit, walking past the poor people. These are the poor white people that just live in the area.
Yep.
I have them written down as two ginger shits. They're the Farber boys.
Yeah, no, I have like just like ginger kids are evil. I have that as a note.
Yeah.
And it's like why?
There's another stereotype for white people.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised.
Gingers are evil.
No, I'm really surprised. Like it goes that far. That's 1946. Like they've been pushing the whole like ginger kids are fucking weird narrative since then, or ginger kids shouldn't be trusted. Like,
and they talk like you don't be around here.
Yeah.
Like these are like two. This is like a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old be like, yeah, we don't want you here.
Look at you in your fancy collar.
Yeah. Our first introduction to these characters is them making fun of their little sister who's playing with a puppy, and they're like, yeah, Jenny, that's the run of the litter. Maybe we should drown it.
Yeah, drown it.
So it's like, oh, so these are the villains. Okay, these are the guys.
We should be concerned with how they interact with our protagonist, quote unquote.
Yeah,
Johnny.
I'm so worried about Johnny and his life.
Yay, Johnny. He's not racist. He doesn't know any better.
Yeah, so like the one thing I put down too is whenever they hold the puppies, they hold it awkwardly. Did you notice that?
Like they're just like by like,
Johnny like looks like he's like choking it when he's trying to keep his head straight. He's like holding it like with his under his head and like putting it in place.
Johnny's like, why drown the puppy when you can do it on land?
Snap!
I don't want to get my fancy lace collar wet.
Oh my god!
my mama paid a lot of money for this. And I actually wrote that like Jenny has met Johnny. It's like a little sister who's like, don't kill these puppies, and then she's met this little boy only once, and then
this is the first time she's meeting him, right? This is her meeting him.
The only time, and then 5 seconds later, they're in like a boat together, and he's like, I've been a pole master my whole life. Like, let's go in the swamp.
Yeah, because the dog jumps in the boat. The dog's name is
Teachy.
I had
Teachy.
Teachy. Yeah, I wrote TG.
When I first
Team Chi.
To go Team Chi. No, when I first heard it, I thought they said Chi so out to Dragon Ball Z, but it's definitely not that. I hear a T in there. It's Teachy.
Team Chi. I think there's an M or an N there, so it's like
really. You heard an M or an N?
I wrote an N or an M. I can't read my handwriting. I think it's either Team Chi or Team Chi. Either way, it sounds like the comic relief of some anime. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's the dog's name, which, why? Anyway, so yeah, this little girl who'd never met him before, she's like, here, you can have him. My brothers are going to drown him, so you take him. Bye.
You want to get in the boat with no questions asked? Sure, Jenny.
Yeah. So as he's going back to the house, we have another scene of more slaves, not slaves singing. They're singing again.
And I actually wrote down like a couple of the lyrics, like they get the dumpling, stick your finger in the dumpling, get in trouble with the cook, let the cold wind blow, look up if let the rain pour down, and then just like talking about like
I remember the beats of all of them. Like, they're catchy.
Happy blacks, so it's alright.
Everything is fine. Don't read too much into this.
We're working of our own free will. Like that's they're so happy to just be there. But once again, not real. I wish they were, but they are not. They're just white people. They're like, this is what black people sing about, right? After a hard days of paid work.
Oh no. So the next story, I forget what the point of the next story is, but the next story is the story. This is like the top racism of the movie. So this is the next story. Uncle Remus is talking about Briar Rabbit, and this time again Remus is in the animated too, and like he's talking to other animals, like he's saying like how do you do to like a possum with like her 3 possum kids, and he's saying how do you do to some other I don't know talking Disney animal that you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote down that Remus sits down next to a frog who's fishing, which. Why would a frog fish?
And that actually replaced Uncle Remus with that fishing frog for Splash Mountain, because I don't know if you've been on Splash Mountain. Like, have you?
20 years ago, maybe.
I can't remember if you've gone to Disney like recently or not. But the way it's set up, it's Uncle Remus's that same fishing spot, and the frog is like, let me tell you the tale of Briar Rabbit and Briar Bear and Briar Fox.
That's some smart Disney covering up. That's a good move.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there was a precedent for this frog to be in this story. So it wasn't they pulled it out of their ass.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as, honestly, considering of all the animated characters in this movie, he would be the one that make the most sense to replace with Remus, because he's the one who's kind of like, what's that Briar Rabbit doing this time? And Remus like, Briar Rabbit stuff. And I wrote down that, because he smokes a pipe, and then he lights the pipe for the frog, and he's like, well, thank you. It's like, yeah, man, this is some good shit. Yeah. Holding it.
Oh, God, this North Tobacco. This North Tobacco just hits different. Yeah, sure, tobacco frog.
So this is it. This is the story that makes this movie pretty racist.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was very surprised, like how blatant it was from the very beginning. This is my time to shine.
David, you can say the word because I can't say the word.
Yeah, no, and also too, it's like I tried to figure out if the word was already offensive or because this was in a tale and it was made offensive. And like I wasn't sure. Like, did you find something?
So before you dive into what the word is. Mm-hmm. I'm almost positive that this is the origin of the word.
It's the origin of the word, right?
Because in the stories of Anansi, because I recently read Neil Gaiman's Anansi's Boys, and it talks about Anansi the spider, who's kind of like this African god of storytelling spider. And a lot of his stories are also Briar Rabbit stories. And one of the Briar Rabbit stories is this story and this word, and he used it in this context. So I really think the origin of this term comes from those stories.
From the tales of Briar.
From the African folklore, from the tales of Briar Rabbit, from Anansi. It all stems from that. And it makes sense because if there are older slaves telling stories to other slaves and they say the story of this word, it makes sense that some white person would hear it, pick it up, and be like, that sounds like a good word to use to insult black people.
Yeah, and also like,
horribly,
and honestly, like,
oh God, I just said that's a good word to use it. Oh God,
that's how racism works. You figure it out organically.
No.
You brainstorm. You're like, what can hurt the most in the shortest amount of time, and I can basically like degenerate someone's confidence. I've got it. Jim, write this down. It's like, oh, damn, you're hot on the presses, kid.
So the point of this story is Briar Fox is trying to catch Briar Rabbit again. He's like, I got to trick him. Like, Briar Rabbit is jumping about. He's jumping down the path. And he's like, almost like a speedster, how fast he is. Like,
yeah, he's very, very...
How do you do?
Quick.
Zip zap. Yeah. I'm like, what? Does Briar Rabbit have access to the Speed Force? What is this?
Not yet. He has to... I think when it comes to like Briar Rabbit and his powers, he's just like... He's got that cartoon quickness. He's like the road runner quick.
Yeah.
So Briar Fox and Briar Bear are in like Briar Fox's like den, and he's over a cauldron, kind of like stewing like this black oily substance, and then Briar Bear is like, dude, what are you doing? And then Briar Fox is like, what the fuck do you think we're doing? It's what I always do, trying to kill this same rabbit, even though I have a whole ecosystem to fucking take care of. Here nor there, he decides to go, and in detail, it's like, I'm gonna use this here, tar baby. That's the word, guys. It's tar baby. The first utilization of this word. I haven't been called a tar baby yet. I'm trying to think of like all the slurs I have been called in my 26 years on this earth. I don't think tar baby's one of them, because it's just one of those like throwaway ones. If anything, I feel like we called like I think we would call when we were growing up each other tar babies as a joke. Whoever was the blackest one, I'm like, fucking tar baby. And then it would just be like, black people can do it, but you can't do it. One of those types of things. Yeah. But I have like a tar baby tally, TBT, and they say it only. Well, actually, I almost remember how many times do you think they say it in the span?
Oh God.
In the span.
Yeah.
Give me. I'll
yes.
do in a range. Do you think it's It's like between. I'll give you like a little range between 10 and 20. How many times do you think they said it?
Definitely more than 10.
Mm-hmm.
They say it a lot. Like Remus just goes like, because they just say it over and over again. So before we even get the count, so the whole point of why they say it so many times is like, so the idea is that Briar Rabbit's gonna see the baby made from an oily substance, and he's gonna say, "How do you do?" And then when the baby made of the oily substance doesn't say anything, he's gonna get offended, and he's gonna walk back and go, "How do you do?" And it's not gonna say anything because again, it's just not a real person. It's a baby made from an oily substance.
Yeah, and also to your point, because I just remembered when you were talking about the African folklore with the tar baby, there actually is like I remember when I studied abroad, like we read like even before then, I can't remember if it was when I studied abroad or when I was reading other African like little folklore tales. There was one for like the Gum Gum baby where it's like kind of the same story where it's like you need to talk to me or I'm gonna slap you and then I'm gonna slap you again. Like so that imagery is still burned in my brain of like this is like an African story. They just replaced like whatever substance they used in Africa with the gum whatever it was with the sticky tar substance. Yeah. So they've somehow managed to warp once again something of like our initial culture into a horrible slur. Like it's honestly impressive at how fucked up it actually is. But because Briar Rabbit is expecting Southern gentleness, like
hospitality.
Yeah, it's like everyone's genteel down south.
So as you do when someone's not polite and doesn't say hi to you, you punch them in the face.
Yeah, you beat the fuck out.
You punch them in the face, they don't say hi to you. That's the response you have when someone doesn't say hi. You just sock them.
Yeah.
So Briar Rabbit gets stuck. And then, he
doesn't learn his lesson either because he hits him twice and tries to kill. Like he gets like he fucks his tar baby up so much that he looks like he's dipped in tar. So he is like he becomes like a blackface rabbit for a little bit, and then he gets and then Briar Fox and Briar Bear see him and they're like, yeah, we did it.
Which I feel like it's gonna be harder to eat your rabbit now. It's covered in tar. Like that doesn't sound pleasant. Like how are you gonna eat that?
Yeah, and I think like the reason why it gets away is because like Briar Bear wants to just beat him to death, whereas the fox wants to I want to put a fire and skin him and do like all this weird like the fox wants to go in on Briar Rabbit, and the bear's like, can we just kill him and fucking eat this thing already?
Yeah.
As dumb as the bear is, he's in this situation, the
bear's I want to knock his head off.
Yeah, I want to knock it clean off. He's being the pragmatic one between the bear and the fox. He's like, can we just be done?
I'm hungry.
Like, we're on cartoon too. And this rabbit's
still haven't eaten. I'm starving you.
I'm bigger than you.
I could just eat you, Fox.
These are and Fox like, I could eat you, bear.
Yeah, so that's when was it like you were saying Fox is like, we'll skin him. No, we'll roast him. We'll this, and then that's when he says, well, hang me, and then that's when Briar Rabbit uses his trickery, his cunning, and he's like, you can knock my head off, hang me, skin me, but please, oh please, do not throw me into that briar patch, because he's using old reverse psychology on him. Are we still going?
Yeah, you're still going.
Okay. So he's using reverse psychology on him just to kind of be like, get him to throw him in there. So Fox stupidly throws him in the briar patch, which, again, are you trying to eat him or what? Like, why would you just throw him into a briar patch?
Yeah.
I know we're putting out cartoon logic, but no. Yeah. Are you trying to eat him or are you just trying to murder him? Well, what is your end game, Fox?
He just kind of like he gets lost in the sauce. He has that vengeance. He's like, you've eluded me for so. He got caught monologuing. Like that's really what it boils down to. It's like I need to revel in me catching my adversary. Let me gloat. Oh no, he's gone. And I got tricked again because I'm a fucking dummy.
Pretty much.
Yep. Also, we need a third cartoon, so we can't.
So
we can't die.
I just found out what the moral of the story was. So the moral of the story of this one is to try to use reverse psychology on people.
Oh yeah,
because that's what Johnny does.
Outsmart them.
That's what it is. Outsmart your enemy. It's like if you're not, because that's the thing. You're a rabbit. You're not that strong, but you're smart and you're fast, and that's what you got to use. That's the moral of this story. So Johnny uses reverse psychology on the hick ginger boy fuckers, as I put it. I was so tired of these characters.
The way like the way you pronounce that, it's like they're ginger boy fuckers.
Oh God!
I was like, as you read it, I'm like, ugh.
No, actually, it's funny how I wrote it. I wrote,
It's not how you wrote it.
that's how I just said it. I wrote it as. Where was it? Oh, ginger hick boy fuckers.
Oh,
that still sounds bad.
Yeah, it still sounds pretty bad. They add just another adjective to the boy fucking.
I don't like them. That's my point. I don't like these stupid kids.
They only fuck poor boys.
Poorer than them? They're already pretty poor. That's another thing. The shack that these people are living in is worse than the shack that the black people are living in.
Which I may know that too.
Which is like, weird.
Well, it's not uncommon because like poor whites at that time were also after the Civil War, there was Reconstruction. There was a Reconstruction like period, and if you weren't a land owning like white, like you were just as poor as like you were just as poor as your black neighbors if they were sharecroppers as well. The only thing that you had going for you is that you may get a better deal for like they wouldn't fuck you over with debt for like if you were a sharecropper, you had to give a certain percentage of your yield every year to the person that's letting you basically use the land. So it's all right. I did this. Here's 15 to 20% of the shit before I can sell it myself. So you're a poor non-landowning white, like you have nothing but your whiteness. So like the racism is like they baked into the culture where it's like don't think about how you're just as bad. If not, we treat you like white trash. Like you're our version of like black people. We just have to respect you and treat you like people. Like that's all it boils down to. But if you're still poor, you're poor.
That's where the systemic part comes into it, where it's like, oh, you're poor and white, but I mean, hey, at least you're not a black slave.
Yeah,
like, that's kind of where like a lot of stuff stems from. Where it's like, at least you're not that. And it's like, oh, I guess, and like that's how you get some people to be on board with it and be okay with it. It's like, because even though you're poor and you're so low, you're not the lowest.
Yeah, because really, it's like you have to find a way to make sure that you have hope, and you can twist hope in so many different ways. It's like, hey, listen, like here's to never being like lesser because of your skin color. Like get something that's not in your control whatsoever. You can use that as like a sick version of like, well, at least I have that, and that stems like we've been talking about the past like minute or two from just poor white people and dealing with poor black people, and also like it wasn't all poor white people. I'm sure there were some whites that were like, this is fucked up. This is really fucked up. Yeah. But history kind of like you have to focus on more of the bad than the good, so the bad doesn't repeat itself, and you can shine lights on like there's just less good. Like in this time frame, it's a lot of bad. It's a lot of fucking bad, and that's after doing like research is like, oh, was it all bad? No, was mostly of it bad? 95%. Pretty bad, pretty rough, pretty rough.
So he uses reverse psychology on the Faber boys, the Faber boys.
The Faber boys, I think you said.
To like, it's more puppy conflict. It's like they want to give the dog back because Johnny's mom doesn't want him to have the dog. So it's like, give it back. And so like he doesn't want to give it back, so he hides it in Uncle Remus's cabin. Mm-hmm. It's like, hide it here. And Remus is kind of like, yeah, sure, you can hide it here. And then like the ginger kids want the dog back
out of like principle,
out of spite. There's
nothing else because like, oh, basically their argument was like, well, our dumb bitch sister Jenny, it wasn't her dog to give you, so it's our dog, boy.
Even though it's earlier they just talked about let's drown it.
Yeah, no, they're assholes. Like that's all. Like they're villains, like you said. Here's the villains of this fucking plot, quote unquote. Once again, the quotes of a plot.
Yeah, a lot of puppy conflict in this movie,
dude.
So much puppy conflict.
Story of
psychology. That's what I wrote. After that. I wrote that and I just wrote more puppy dog conflict. Too much puppy dog conflict.
Too much puppy dog conflict.
Yeah, so the next part is just I don't know her character. It's Hattie. It's she's baking the pie and singing, and the guy's kind of part where I was just like,
Uncle Remus comes in, like sit down, have a little bit of food.
Yeah, and he's like kind of trying to use like his kind of like smooth talking ways and
get some more food.
And she sees right through it. He's like, get the fuck out of here, Remus. Like, this food is not for you. Get out.
I'm not some simple white boy with that you can spin your tall tails on, bitch. I have a house to feed. Get the fuck out of here, because it's my ass if they're like, Hattie, shouldn't there be more chicken like on this plate? Like, well, man, like
Remus,
I don't know.
I've heard all the Briar Rabbit stories. They're not going to work on me. Get out.
Oh my fucking god. So that happens. I said Miss Sally is also retarded.
Because this is when Miss Sally's like, she's not to be a mom. She's not parenting her kid, and she's blaming everyone and everything on her son's behavior. It's like, oh, he's so bad because of Remus's stories, or he's so bad because his father's not here, or he's so bad because he's running away and taking dogs he shouldn't take, and it's like, maybe you should just be a mom and parent your kid and talk to them like because it's your child.
Yeah.
Be a parent.
Yeah, it's every black person's fault, and it's not your fault.
Yeah, and then so this is the part where they're like, okay, Johnny, it's your birthday. We're going to have a birthday party for you. And then, because the grandma's like, well, that's what it is. So the grandma's like, well, he needs more than just his mother and grandmother. He needs friends, and he needs social interaction. Again, grandma being really smart and, like, pretty kind of just making a lot of sense. She's like, why would he want to hang out with us?
Yeah.
I'm a little old lady, and you're his mom. He needs friends. So then that's my mom's like, okay, I guess. And it's like, yeah, you idiot. So then Johnny's like, it's like, well, invite all these kids. And then Johnny's like, can I invite Jenny? You know, the one friend I made on my own? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, I don't know. What?
Yeah.
Oh, because I think it's because she's poor. That's what it really feels like.
No. That was the only reason why, like, she would make him not, like, she's so concerned about his well-being and what he's doing in his spare time, worry about him dealing with his older black man.
And his image.
Yeah.
You gotta wear these little dandy outfits with your little doilies around your neck.
Yeah, so it's like, that's the only reason why, because, like, she doesn't, also, back then, like, family was everything. So if she didn't know the family and it was this little poor girl that you found, like, in the fucking swamp land somewhere, like, bitch, like, you're gonna embarrass me in front of me and my white friends. So
that's what was made Grandma great.
She's a lesser white, and Grandma's like, bitch, stop.
Yeah, that's what made Grandma great. She was like, nonsense. Of course you can invite her. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, like,
this is my house. Hey, Sally, don't forget,
bitch.
I own everyone here. I do.
I mean, not own, but they can leave whatever time they want.
They're employed. They're employed.
Mr. Lincoln said they're free.
And so he goes off to get Jenny, and is that what happens?
Like, no, first he goes to what does he do? He goes to Remus to see the puppy again. He's going, Team-chi,
yeah.
Team-chi, chi-chi, chim-chi-chi,
kimchi.
And that's when Remus is like, sorry, I had to give it back because, again, like, the boys figured out through the reverse psychology again to, like, talk to the mom, and then, like, the mom was kind of mad that Remus was hiding the dog.
Johnny's mom, Miss Sally, correct?
Yes. Okay. Miss Sally was mad at Remus for hiding the dog, and it's like, Remus, you kind of disobeyed my wishes. And it's like, yeah, I kind of did fuck up this time. It's like, yeah, you kind of did, man. Like,
I told you.
Like, someone's mom, like, the mother said no. Like, forget about all the race stuff. Like, this is not your role, man. Like,
yeah, you're just like my little boy's confidant right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I mean,
you're his school counselor, I guess.
You're like this Mr. Mackey. Like, this song in the South is just like, okay, we're gonna learn about.
But I wrote
about Briar Rabbit.
Horribly, okay? When Johnny finds out that the dog's gone, when Johnny starts crying, I laughed so hard. I don't know why, but when he's crying about this dog being gone, I guess because maybe this is also like the third time we've seen him cry in this movie.
Oh yeah, also like it's not like the best cry, so like the effect.
Yeah. What do you mean Team-chi's gone?
What did I do? I miss Dad.
I have everything, but I want that puppy too.
Yeah, and also
Fuck
like,
you.
and what's even better is that I wrote. This is why, before we started recording, I was getting in a rage about Jenny, like the little girl.
Yeah, why don't you like Jenny? I think Jenny's fine. Damon doesn't like Jenny, but I think Jenny's okay.
This goes back to, like, I have a bias against Jenny's, like, a la Forrest Gump. You can't trust a Jenny in a fucking movie for shit, alright? So this is what Jenny does to fuck Johnny over even harder after he gets found out by the puppy shit. Like, Jenny is, like, it's like Johnny's with Uncle Remus and Jenny, and the mom, like, comes to them, and I don't know if you remember when Johnny picks up Jenny for the party, the mom's like, now remember, Jenny, you got, like, curtsy. He's like, please to meet you. Like, please to meet you. My mama taught me this.
Which, again, another example of them being poor. It's like, she has to learn how to curtsy. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, like, you don't know.
I immediately thought of, like, Arya Stark. That's, like, what was it, Game of Thrones, when, it's when Tyrion's, like, prostitute wife does the curtsy.
Oh, Shay.
Shay does the curtsy. And Cersei's just like, that's the worst curtsy I've ever seen. How the hell did you make it to King's Landing curtsying like that?
Cersei, you're drunk.
Yeah, I'm drunk.
I know.
I'm a Lannister, damn it.
I know a bad curtsy, fucked up or no, sir.
Curtsy.
Yeah, when I curtsy, I usually say curtsy.
Yeah, I haven't curtsied in like a hot minute, so I don't know.
It's fine. But no, so Jenny she takes the time out of her day to be like, oh yeah, Uncle Remus told us these stories. You know, the one you told Johnny not to be around anymore. Pleased to meet you. And then she fucking leaves. Like, she fucks Johnny over.
But she doesn't know.
That's not the point.
Toby knew. And he fucked him over.
Toby's already fucked over. I'm gonna put my Ray Trace Jenny. Fuck Jenny.
All right.
You know?
Toby's got a lot of problems.
Yeah, Toby's got way more problems than this little white girl. She had one job, not fuck over her new friend. She's like, well, that old black man's doing this shit mighty fine. Oh, what's that? Is that supposed to be around there? My bad. Pleased to meet you. Curtsy. My shitty dress.
Yeah, and the reason why she gets told the story too is she's crying because she can't go to the party because her brothers like push her in some mud, so her pretty dress gets all ruined. Yeah, and Johnny's trying to make her feel better and just doing everything wrong. And then of course this smooth old black man shows up, makes everything right, and the little girl's like, okay,
cool. That's great. That's perfect. Like we're gonna do everything okay. And like so, after that, like what's the next? When's the next cartoon have? Is there one more cartoon after this? Or
there's a cartoon between that, because she gets told a story about Uncle Remus. There's another cartoon. It's which cartoon is this?
Because I didn't write that cartoon.
Crying over the puppy. Remus feels guilty. Johnny says Remus is my best friend. And then when he says Toby, that's another thing I mean of. He's like, "Come, we'll talk to my friend Remus. Remus is my best friend." I was like, "Well, I guess Toby can just eat shit then, I guess."
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to say also before Remus got into the next story, well, because this is between the "pleased to meet you" when she rats him out to the mom. So like when they actually meet up with Remus, I one thing I wrote down was I keep waiting for one of these little ginger shits to say something racist. Like, they got that look in their eye. Like, whenever they see Remus, you can just see the look in the eye that we don't respect you.
Well, I actually made a note about how, like, even though Remus is obviously their elder by, like, 60-plus years, he still has to, like, he can't really say... When there's one line when they're coming up to him for the first time for the dog, being like, we want our dog back. He doesn't say, like, I'm going to do something. He's like, I'm going to tell Miss Sally. Like, and that's his biggest comeback to these children, like these white children. All he can do is like, I'll get the bigger white. And then,
we're gonna tell on you. Not if I tell on you first.
Yeah, like now it's race.
Dude, we can tell that race this old black man. Yeah, I think we can too. Yeah. No, dude, get back here.
Oh gosh, all these tales I should have just been running. I should have been doing cardio. That's what happens when you live by yourself. People aren't honest with you anymore.
So the next story, I forget what the next story is, but the next thing I just remember writing down is Fox is gonna roast. The next thing is they're roasting the rabbit over like a spigot, like, and then like I just made a note of the fox is gonna eat the rabbit fully clothed.
Oh yeah, no.
He's just kind of roasting him on there.
Roasting over a spit. Did it show how he got caught?
No, it just jumps to him.
The story opens with
him being
confusing.
The story just starts with him being caught, roasted. It's like, okay, I don't know how he caught him this time, but
yeah, okay. I was curious.
I guess that's unimportant for the person watching to know. I would like to know.
Maybe that's the reason why I don't really remember the third one as much, because there really wasn't anything. What was the point of the story? Do you remember anything that adds to the plot of the puppy?
The whole point of the last story is just so Remus can get this little girl to stop crying.
Oh, is it
like she's crying because her outfit's covered in mud. She's like, I can't go to the party like this. Like, I look terrible. And Johnny's trying to make her feel better, and he can't.
He's fucking up.
He's just messing up. And then Uncle Remus shows up and tells a story. It makes her feel better, but I don't remember what the point of the story is other than make her feel better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I didn't really write much about the third story.
Was it like it can
always remember.
Is it like it can always be worse? Like it's just like It must not have been like as important for like the rest of this movie and what we found, because I took notes about so many other things, but the third story is just like and blankety blank.
I don't remember how he got caught or how he got out of it. Yeah. I just remember him roasting over the fire. Maybe he didn't get out of it.
Oh, that's the moral of the story. You could be Briar Rabbit dead, girl. You can always wash off the mud. You can't wash off charred skin.
Yeah. So at this point, like you were saying, when she, because the thing you don't like Jenny for, when she called him out again for being like, "Oh, Remus told us, pleased to meet you." Mm-hmm. That's when Mom's like officially puts her foot down and be like, "Stay away from my kid."
Yeah.
Stay away from my kid.
You've overstepped your bounds. You're done. You're done.
And they did tell him a few times. They were like, please stay away from my son. But also, it's hard to keep Johnny away. I mean, Johnny just loves that man.
Yeah, man, because he misses his papa.
Yeah, he needs that thing. Oh, God. So, like, the next major part is, he's hanging out with Jenny. And they're just, like, walking about. And then that's when, like, I think that's a breaking point for Remus. That's when he's like, I'm leaving. I'm going to Atlanta. Like, I'm officially going to Atlanta. And everyone knows it. Like, Remus is leaving. So that's the point where officially you're like, okay, they have to be free. Because if he's like, I'm leaving for Atlanta, I think a few people be like, you're not going anywhere, sir.
And the grandma's, now we get papers you ain't. Like, can you even read the Atlanta sign, boy? It's like, I thought we were equals. We were never equals.
You're a shovel!
You're an animated shovel.
But no, Remus is like, I'm going to leave. And everyone's like, okay, I guess Remus is leaving. And that's the kind of the real moment where it kind of hammers in for me, where it's like, okay, then I guess they aren't slaves. They're just Whatever
employee.
Fuck the weird nature of this relationship is.
They're probably, for all intents and purposes, they're probably sharecroppers. Like, for the purposes of the story, and it's saying it's after the Civil War, and and to your point, Uncle Remus can leave of his own free will and volition. That he's a sharecropper, or an old sharecropper that's relying on like his neighbors to make sure he gets fed. Like, that's kind of it. Because I don't see him working. He never goes to the fields with other slaves.
Never.
I said slaves. I'm sorry. I mean employees.
He's never part of that convoy of them singing that really catchy, like that.
Everything's fine.
Look at this cow. Oh, an important thing we forgot to bring up fairly early in the story. The bull.
Yeah, it's such a foreshadow. It's like, don't go. It's when like Toby is like showing him. Is this like when Toby is doing like the like they're catching frogs or going to the creek?
This is when they're like racing? They're catching frogs at this point. This is like right before he meets Jenny and the thing. And for some reason Toby has to go to work or something. Oh, shit. I don't think that's what it is. I think that Toby has to leave. So while Toby and Johnny are kind of just walking about like the trail, Johnny's like, "Oh, look, a shortcut through here." And he's like, "No, don't you go in there. You gotta watch out for the bull." And there's like ominous, like almost Peter and the Wolf style music playing when they zoom in on this bull that just looks like a bull. Mm-hmm. Not ominous or scary at all. It's just like a bull standing there eating food. It's like, oh well, the wind's blowing this way. The bull can smell you. You don't want to go, but if the wind's blowing that way, you can. And then they'll lick your finger and feel for the wind. So it's like, Toby's like, don't go through there.
Yeah.
You stay away from this heavy, heavy foreshadowing, Johnny. Yeah. You stay away.
You see this rickety fence? Don't go anywhere near this rickety fence.
So now we jump forward to, words going around that Remus is leaving. Remus is going to Atlanta. And then Johnny doesn't find out till a little later. Johnny's hanging out with Jenny. And when Johnny's hanging out with Jenny, Jenny's just like, oh my gosh, Papa's here. And I guess Jenny's dad is back from wherever he was, just rubbing the salt in Johnny's dadless wounds, Yeah. My dad, I'm going to go tell my dad the stories about Briar Rabbit that you can tell your dad, but he already knows and he doesn't care because he doesn't love you.
Yeah, those dad-shaped wounds getting any bigger, Johnny? So twist the cigarette, Jenny.
So
twist it.
As Jenny runs away, she literally gets tossed in the air by her dad. It is picturesque of dad just being like, my little angel, hugging and kissing. And
I would never leave you for an inordinate amount of time. Wait, the little boy's father didn't even tell him how long he was going to be away? What a monster.
You knew how long I was away. You knew that I would be back either today or tomorrow. And here I am.
With the railroads the way they are, it could have been the most a week.
So that was kind of like the breaking point for Johnny, and that's when Johnny officially finds out that Remus is leaving. And Remus is like, Remus is going to leave without saying goodbye. And that's when Johnny decides to run through the bullpen.
Yep.
Yeah. And of course, the bull sees him, and they're like, Johnny, no! And then Johnny
screams,
yeah, and then you don't see what happens.
They're cowards. Disney is cowards. I want to see that boy being gored. I want to flip.
I just want to see him tossed in the air, in Shrek 2 when Puss in Boots shows up spinning like that. I wanted that with Johnny. I wanted Johnny doing that weird cartwheel in the air. It's oh!
Yeah, no, I want 2 to 3 rotations. Him landing on his neck, and then they're like, I think Johnny's dead. I think he's still breathing. Don't worry about it. That was funny. It was funny enough for me. Fuck Johnny.
God, I wrote.
What is it?
I wrote, Remus decides to leave for Atlanta to drop his mixtape. Hey, he could probably have some Briar Rabbit raps.
There's just no good recording studios down here in the Plantation. They just have better equipment and technology.
It's not because it's Atlanta.
And
I heard Atlanta just thought of that.
And these things called microphones. They have this new
ziggity zoo, ziggity da. Oh, yeah.
Cut. It's like, Remus, get out. Do you mean you want us to perpetuate this for the rest of our culture? We're good, buddy. Take your Negro spiritual back
and then I wrote down, so when they finally find Johnny in the field, passed down, his mom just kind of throws him up over her shoulders,
oh yeah,
we gotta get him to bed. I'm like, yeah, don't support his neck or anything.
Terrible mom.
Your concussed, spine-injured child. I'm just gonna toss him over my thing.
Like a sack of potatoes.
And then this is the heaviest handed one of where, so now once they mom toss him over the shoulder and they go into the house. This is when they're in the house, and this is when the final group of not slaves are singing a song that sounds very much like Let My People Go.
Yes. It is the same cadence, the same, everything is just hammering in. It's
everything but the lyrics. Shh. Did you get the lyrics?
Let me see if I wrote those lyrics down. Because no, I just wrote again. This sounds like a Negro. Wait, no. Let the rain. Yeah.
No, that's like the.
You see them walking. Oh, it's when they're walking back. But let me see if I wrote down anything.
No, this is like when there's.
Yeah.
It's literally like a candlelight vigil over Johnny's bedroom, or beneath Johnny's bedroom, with them being like, "Let my Johnny go,"
or like, "Let my Johnny live, let Massa Johnny live."
But it's definitely not "Let my people go," just because they didn't. Not once did they say it. I just couldn't quite make out what they were saying.
Yeah, no, I looked up the lyrics for a couple of the songs, and like they're only like a minute each. So
and while they're singing, Toby has like a single tear cry sitting outside with them.
I'm gonna lose my friend, Master.
My best friend. Oh, Toby, you're not even in my top 5. Toby.
Oh, you're getting the baby.
No.
getting the wrong idea.
You called me a frog once.
Yeah.
You think that makes us tight?
Just one frog too. Like you didn't even get like the biggest one. I saw bigger ones in that pond.
Wow. Wow, Toby. Like
where presume.
So then, like, Johnny's passed out in bed, being like, it's like almost like he has a fever dreams. He's like hysterical. He's like sweaty in bed. He's going like, Uncle Remus, Uncle Remus.
My mom's not present. My mom's not here.
Yes.
She's never cooked for me once.
So at this point, that's when Johnny's dad actually comes back and he's like, how bad is it? And he's like, yeah, I'm finally here now that things have gone from bad to worse. And he goes to the bed and he's like, Johnny, it's me. And they're like, oh, look, Johnny, your dad's actually back. And he's like, Uncle Remus. Uncle Remus.
I wish it's kind of like Beetlejuice rules, because like Uncle Remus is like nowhere near what's going on, but he does like
he comes back.
He does magically appear like back, and he's like in like the center of like the slaves, like, as they're singing. I mean, like
he's like walking back while they're doing their candlelit vigil, and that's when Grandmom's like, Uncle Remus, we need some of your black magic.
Yeah, sprinkle it from some of your beard.
So Remus tells him another story because I guess Uncle Remus's magical stories are so powerful they can cure concussions and spinal injuries?
No. Listen,
that's not what you interpreted from that?
No. My fan theory of what happened at the very end that led to, because like spoiler, Johnny's miraculously okay because Uncle Remus comes into the fucking bed. He's like, hey, wake up, bitch, come on, stop worrying your family.
Your real daddy's here.
Yeah, he's like, hey, your dad's here. All right, my work here is done now, Johnny. But
John might be your father, but he ain't your daddy.
And then he just shoots himself in front.
Oh my god! Remus, no!
But my theory was, I said, if blacks sing in unison, they can heal any wound. We've been oppressed for too long, and we choose not to use the power for anyone. You had one chance, and now it's kaput. It's over. I'm telling it to the whole world. Get 10 blacks in a chorus, we can cure cancer.
So, you know, like you said, Johnny's okay, and then the next scene is Johnny, Jenny, and Toby. Like they're out in the field again, singing the zippity-doo-dah, zippity-da. And while they're, I don't know if did you catch this? While they're all singing and jumping. And there's a point where they all have to jump over a log. So it's Johnny first, and he jumps over the log. Then Jenny jumps over the log. Then Toby trips over the log, lands on his face, and his hat falls off. Because again, fuck Toby.
Yeah, what a fucking idiot. He says, "Oh, look at that black child with no rhythm." It's the most unbelievable part of this whole fucking movie.
All right, so then at this point, Briar Rabbit shows up in the real world. Briar Rabbit's real, and Uncle Remus can't believe it, even though he's been telling us...
he does like a double take. He's like, what the fuck?
What?
I've been pulling this shit out of my ass for 50 years, guys. This should not be a thing.
Because part of the song is zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day, blah, blah. He goes, it's true. It's magical. Everything is satisfaction. So at that point, I'm pretty sure he looks at the camera and goes, like, confused look. He goes, like, it's true. Yeah, it's natural. Like, he didn't know that stories were true, even though he's been telling us the whole time. So then, Briar Rabbit talks to the kids, and we get more zippity-doo-dah. And then this is where my fan theory comes in. I told Damon I have a fan theory about the beginning of the movie. So
hit me with it.
The very end. So the Briar Rabbit is real now, and the three kids are like basically skipping into the sunset with Briar Rabbit, and Briar Rabbit's like singing and skipping and dancing. It's like, come on! And the sun's setting, the sky's like a beautiful purple, and like you kind of just see the silhouettes of the kids like skipping and singing zippity-doo-dah while Briar Rabbit reads them, and Remus is like trying to keep up with it. And, he can't because, Remus has a cane. He's an old man. But they're, like, waiting up for him. Like, come on, Remus, come on. So finally Remus shows up. And then they go over to the hill. And you get the classics of movies. In the 40s, you get, like, a curse of the end. Mm-hmm, yeah. So Briar Rabbit has been shown time and time again to be a trickster.
Okay.
He's feeding them to the fox.
That's the
and the bear. We never quite see how he escapes from that spick. So his trick is like, hey, if you don't eat me, I'll get you something bigger and better to eat. How about 3 children and an old man? They're like, okay, if you can bring them here, we'll do it. So that's where he's taking them. So when they go over that sunset, he's feeding them to the fox and the bear.
Oh, okay.
And that's why the sun sets that purplish red. It's a blood.
It's a
blood sun.
It's a blood. The ritual is complete. Do you want to hear my fan theory of what's been going on? So my fan theory was that Uncle Remus has been disassociating for years to escape like the horrors of slave, the realities of slavery. So for this entire time, like he's been caught in this delusion, like of like, you know, Briar Rabbit and everything else, and because Johnny has also had like a near-death experience now, or near-death experience now, he too can see Briar Rabbit now. So Remus is like somehow helped him like unlock this portion of his mind where it's like, if you have trauma, Johnny, you can just find little Briar Rabbit and he'll be your friend. He'll always be there. And Ginny has a traumatic life because her father is like, you know, gone. Her brother's a piece of shit. Like she's a poor white. She's like, oh look, everything's here. Toby's like a slave child. So
sort of, kind of, maybe. Sort of.
Yeah. So like it's just like it's a collective delusion because they're trying to escape like all the things that they're trying to run. They're trying to escape from their own lives, and they all have like different reasons to like be traumatized. And Uncle Remus has been like, nah, I've told you the secret. Now you have to go with me into the delusion, into the Matrix. But they all took the blue pill. They're like, nope, everything's fine. Oh,
they're following Briar Rabbit down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I like yours more because it's more fucked up. Mine's just like they got eaten. You're just like they're in a shared delusion of madness.
Slavery makes madmen of us all.
Oh God. And that's Song of the South.
Yeah, it was pretty shitty.
It's not a good movie.
Not a good movie.
A lot of puppy conflict.
Mm-hmm. That's the main point of the movie is this kid's... I wrote down like the main plot. Plot of the movie is so fucking stupid. He has no friends, befriends Uncle Remus, gets a dog, has to give dog back because the mom being a stuck-up bitch, redheaded kids are bad, Ginny's dumb, and then he almost dies. And
then he doesn't.
Yeah, and then he doesn't. That's kind of it. But I will say that after watching, at the very beginning of the program, I said that when I first watched this movie, I was like, it is what it is. But after re-watching the movie and really diving into like all the subtle things that you pick up on when you're just watching a movie to fucking produce something for it, you just see all of these little things that make you go in these other rabbit holes of just like, oh, what if... So we're talking about it being during... If the time period is the post-Civil War era, and there's all these things going on, what was actually going on during the post-Civil War? And what can we glean from this movie and how it really is undercutting how brutal it actually was to just be black at that time, and what you had to deal with and struggle with, and all of the things that like happened that kind of kept, because you would have, you know, progress, like 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and then it didn't change anything though. Like it didn't change anything for a long time. Some even argue that we're still fighting like for certain like rights to this day, which is unfortunate. It's gotten better, but it's still not the best it can be. But here nor there. What we've been talking about, because I can get a whole thing about like oppression, but like that's for another episode.
Yeah.
But when we were talking about the houses, and I looked into basically like home ownership laws like at that time. So during the 1860s, they passed this thing called the Homestead Act, which allowed like land grants to be given to like, you know, poor people. It's like, oh, you can farm the land, build things, build colleges, etc., etc.
Okay.
So blacks were not allowed to do that obviously before slavery, but after slavery, one of the things that kind of like made me think that it would make sense there would be less houses for these people, even if they are free, is because to get into those programs, you have to prove who you are, and there's no paperwork. There's no. If you're a slave, like the fact that there's any like record of your existence, it's almost impossible. So even if families were on plots of land for a certain period of time, they couldn't pass it down to their next of kin because there was no way to prove family connection. So you would have like whites that would find like, you know, free people, and be like, oh, listen, like now that this person's dead, there's no way to claim this. It's actually kind of on the border of my property, so I'm just going to claim this is my land now. And so the amount of homes that could be built in that time period was already limited because of just legislation that was that because the 14th Amendment was like, oh, you can't discriminate against people based on like this and this. They have to be treated fairly under the law, but it doesn't say anything about, oh, but we don't have things that can still prove who we are or our family line or our genealogy or anything that would help with property rights. Like that's just gone. Like so that's gone from it. And then I was doing more digging into, because like I noted something at the very beginning of the movie. Oh yeah, it started with black housing, and then it just went into like this whole thing that like certain parts of the movie, like you're reminded over and over again that these people are they're not slaves, but they're sharecroppers. Like that's the best case scenario basically. Yeah. It's like if it's past Civil War, they're not slaves anymore, but they're still in the South. They're working the farms for a living, but they have to give a good portion of their I think it's 10 to 20% of the yield, like I said earlier, of the crops to like the big owner of the plantation. Okay. So it's like you can't acquire land. You're already black in the South. But on top of that, what the lost sharecroppers would do, or the masters of the land would do, is like they would basically make sure you got into debt with like, oh, they would jack up like the rates. They would say, no, you actually owe me this much this season because my yield was so much. So you would basically work them into another form of slavery all over again. So even those people are happy to be home, and like we've talked about how throughout the whole movie it's like the Negro spirituals keep saying it's great to be here, don't leave, etc., etc. They couldn't leave. Like there was no real option, because if you tried to leave like or break out of like a deal that didn't work well for you, you can be considered a vagrant and then be put in jail and then work for free anyway in a chain gang as no form of slavery. So there's no silver line to still staying like in the South. And you couldn't even, like I said, you couldn't leave.
That's what Jim Crow laws. I mean, it's just another way to keep people down.
And actually, like, on top of that, too, it's like if you're a black person in the South, like, you're under constant threat of the Klan coming in, burning down any progress that you make. Like, and legislators not doing anything about it, because the federal government is still very weak, like, at this point in history. Oh, yeah. Even before the Civil War, they didn't have fucking...
That was the point. They wanted state independence. We're all supposed to be, like, individual little countries.
Yeah.
Just so stupid.
Insane on paper to think about, like, how do you think that we're going to be in the same landmass? And it's like, well, we'll just have slaves, and you guys don't have to have slaves. Like, no! Like, we can't have a Declaration of Independence and fucking be divided on this line and still be considered one country. So, we're not going to be able to take on the rest of the world if they decide to show up at our doorstep.
Is there anything directly about the film you want to say, though?
No.
Not just the ramifications. Like,
no.
Not ramifications, but like something about how the movie might have affected at the time or is now. So
no.
All right, so I just want to, I think we're kind of winding down now. Mm-hmm. I just want to wrap up with saying that even at the times, this movie was considered racist. I'm not sure if we said that in the beginning or not.
Yeah.
This movie was considered racist at the time. Apparently, the NAACP wanted a screening of this, and they were just told no by Disney.
Like, sorry, guy.
They were like, no. And you can actually see old footage of people actually picketing this movie during its premiere. So it's always been considered racist. But I think now, like, it's still pretty racist, but I think most people just don't know why, because Disney's not released it. And honestly, rightly so. I mean, I think Disney's made a great call. I mean, they're not turning a profit off of this property anymore, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Unless you count Splash Mountain, which I don't think Splash Mountain really is.
Oh my god.
Is it still?
Wait, it's still
like to this day. Is it still Song of the South style?
Yeah. No. There's still Briar Rabbit.
It's still there.
Yeah,
I thought they made it just like a log flume.
No, I have notes about Splash Mountain. I'm glad you brought it up. Okay. Because like Splash Mountain, like it got revealed. Blah 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 blah. Oh, so Splash Mountain was based, like, the Imagineer that made Splash Mountain based his idea for it on this older ride where there's multiple Six Flags. So, like, the second Six Flags park was Six Flags Over Georgia. That was opened in, like, 1960s. This ride was 1967. So in 1967, this park opens, and it either opens or the ride becomes a thing. Basically, Six Flags Over Georgia, the theming, because every amusement park has like there's a theming department. Like here's what's gonna happen. There's this area of the park, this area of the park. You know what I'm talking about. Sure. So and then Six Flags Over Georgia, it was based off of the six municipalities or states that used to run Georgia. So there was like a Spanish portion, a French portion, like however many people owned Georgia at the time, or like his Georgia history. That was the theming.
I'm pretty sure one of the Six Flags actually is the Confederate flag, is it not?
Yep. No.
Yeah.
You get, dude. You're on the fucking money because there was it was called Confederate land, and on the map of the park, it's actually a big Confederate flag. It's fucking great. But in Confederate land, there was this ride called Tales of the Okefenokee, and in 1967, the original version of this ride was only open for 1 year when it first debuted, and in that version of Tales of Okefenokee, you see Briar Bear, Briar Fox, Briar Rabbit. The animatronics are like 1960s, so it's like nothing. It's
to the robots.
Not even that. Like you have like them on fucking sticks, like running around like a circle. But it's like an automatic track. Still very impressive for the time, obviously. But you look at it now, it's dog shit. But more importantly, besides like the three main animals, you actually have a scene. There's a scene of Briar Rabbit and the Tar Baby in the original Tales of Okefenokee. But so it was only there for a year, so maybe someone was like, maybe we shouldn't have this one thing in here, and let's cut it. And so you go into like you go fast forward like 15-20 years. This kid who had been at that park at that time has the idea for Splash Mountain because Disney needed three things. They needed they wanted to use a log flume. They wanted to attract like a younger like adult audience to the parks. And I think there was a third problem they needed to solve. I can't remember what the issue was. But long story short, it came up with Splash Mountain, and they decided to just not use Uncle Remus. They replaced it with a frog telling the tale. But instead of the Tar Baby scene, it's Briar Rabbit being like hit with like a beehive from Briar Fox. And the reason why it was going to be called Zippity Doo. It was going to be a play on words with Zippity Doodah, but fucking Bob, who was at the head of Disney at the time, Michael Eisner wanted. I think you'll like this fact. Michael Eisner wanted to call it Splash Mountain to promote the movie Splash that was coming out, like Tom Hanks.
The mermaid one.
Yeah, it's like that's the only reason why it's called Splash Mountain. It's a tie-in to the movie Splash with Tom Hanks, and that was his whole reasoning. And his whole thing was like, I need it to be tubular. So my son, like that's a quote from him. He's like, I need it to be tubular. If my son likes it, then it'll be okay. And if you look up like cringy production, like they basically made like a music video, like trying to make Zippy Doodah like rap. It's brutal.
What year is this?
1980s.
1980s?
It's fucking brutal. If you talk about the haircuts alone, it's 1980s.
Okay, and here I also have a critic's review from 1946 of Song of the South. It is Bosley Crowther. Not sure if I'm saying his name right, but he's a critic back in the 40s. And he did not like Song of the South. One note he wrote was, the ratio of live to cartoon action is approximately 2-1, and that is approximately the ratio of its mediocrity to charm. Another note that he wrote about this movie was that, let me just find a good note to end on. Basically, he didn't like the movie. Even he didn't like the movie in 1946. He calls this movie pretty bad. He says that the animated portions of the movie are moderately good Disney shorts, cleverly conceived and animated in an amusing, rambunctious mood. But basically, it's not enough to save the movie. He did not like this movie at all. Through no fault of their own, the performers in the predominantly live-action phase behave like characters in a travesty on the antebellum South. And then, what was his last line? Is perhaps if there wasn't so much of that... the live-action. So with the live-action, he says, if there wasn't so much of them, they wouldn't look so bad. But here, Mr. Disney violated the law of diminishing...
violated? Jesus,
violated the law of diminishing artistic returns. Damn.
I can see him like taking a sip of tea as he's saying like, "Ooh, you're gonna get him with this one."
So he's basically pointing out how it's all money based. Live action was cheaper than doing animation, and then he says, in his move, referring to Disney, in his move toward economy with live action, he has moved directly into a perilous trap. If he doesn't beware, a huge tar baby will snare his talents worse than poor Briar Rabbit's limbs.
Oh God.
Yeah. So he did not like this movie. And it's not really because of the racist parts. He doesn't really say anything about that because, I mean, why would you? You're a film critic in the 40s and you're a white man. You're not, I mean, whether I don't know anything about this guy's life, but he's not thinking about that sort of thing. But I just think it's funny that everyone hates this movie because of the racism they're not quite aware of. This movie's so old, no one's seen it.
Yeah.
But everyone just, they're just assuming it's bad. And I'm never disappointed. I thought it'd be more racist, honestly.
Yeah, and really, like, you have to, like, delve, like, pretty deep. Not necessarily deep, but, like, the racism's there, but it's just, like, it's the undertones. It's all of, like, it's all the things they don't tell you. It's all the things where they try to sanitize what, like, post-Civil War Southern society was like. It's a very idealized version of black and white relationships, and it was still pretty much the same, for like, nothing had changed for after the Civil War for at least 50, 60 years. And the way the movie is like, well, the Civil War's over, so like we're great now, guys, right? We're all doing good? No, we're all doing terrible. We're doing probably even worse because now we actually have rights that we can't even exercise.
All right, so I want to end this on a very sad note.
Yes!
So one thing I want to talk about is a man named Bobby Driscoll. Now, Bobby Driscoll was the actor who played Johnny in this movie. He was a little boy. This was Song of the South was his first Disney movie because Walt Disney just loved this kid for whatever reason. He thought he captured the perfect innocence and charm of still not being naive.
You'll make the racism much more palatable, Johnny. You'll do great.
So Bobby Driscoll, honestly, he became probably the first child Disney star. He really is the first child Disney star. So he's most famous for Peter Pan. He's the voice of Peter Pan when he was a little bit older. And and this is where it starts to get really fucked up. So in his late teens, he was fired from Disney. Now, this story I found a few sites for, but I never really found a legitimate reason why he was fired. But apparently, when he showed up, basically to go to work, to show up at the gates of Disney, they just didn't let him in. Oh, they're like, you're not allowed in. You don't work here anymore.
That's such
Can you imagine?
That's such old Hollywood.
You're not allowed in here anymore. This kid's a teenager. He did at least, I think, three movies with Disney. And the last big budget movie he did wasn't even a Disney movie. It was just called Party Crashers. And it was some like rom-com teen thing he made.
Like, did he drug too many girls? Is that even possible in the 30s and 40s? Like, what happened?
I don't know.
Honestly, I just say 40s and 50s. Like, what the fuck happened?
He wasn't cute anymore. He hit puberty. He got acne. His voice cracked. He wasn't that cute little boy anymore. Because he did Peter Pan for Disney. He also did this movie, and he also did Treasure Island. He was what's the name of the kid from Treasure Island? It's such an old story.
Yeah,
he wasn't Long John Silver. He was.
Oh shit!
Right?
I really don't know.
Hawkins.
It was Hawkins.
Jim Hawkins. He played Jim Hawkins in the Treasure Island movie.
Muppet Treasure Island. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Muppet Treasure Island. That's the real Disney Treasure Island for me. So basically, he got fired from Disney. And that's that. And then he immediately started getting more involved in drugs and alcohol.
Booze
and he was
and pills.
not doing too well.
Booze and pills.
And to a point where he wasn't doing any movies at all anymore. He sunk real low, doing a lot of drugs and alcohol. I think it was booze and pills. And then finally he got arrested.
Classic.
He got arrested and for check tampering. I think B&E. And yes,
damn, he went
check
to
altering, theft.
He went to breaking entering.
B&E, theft, and check altering. And apparently, which is another interesting fact about this guy, is he's allegedly the first person to ever use a drug addiction as a mental illness as a defense in a court case. And it worked.
Whoa.
Yeah, he
really?
got less time. Yeah, he
Damn.
used it as a mental illness. I'm surprised that he was able to do that.
Do you see the year for that court case?
I didn't look up the
No,
year. But he would have been. This would have been.
I'm honestly just curious.
This would have probably been in like the mid to late 50s.
Damn.
Just realistically. So he did what he had to do, and so finally. Hollywood's done with him because when you're arrested and back in these days, you're blacklisted, you're done, you can't do anything anymore. So he decides to go to New York. He thinks he's going to start doing more stage stuff, and he actually becomes really good friends with Andy Warhol.
Really?
Really good friends with Andy Warhol. And his last legitimate movie he did was a movie called Dirt in 1965.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, he played a nun in the movie.
Wait,
he played a nun.
Like a female nun, or he's like a male?
I don't know. I saw clips of it and it was really bad. Like, it's hard to tell the quality, but he's just dressed up as a nun, like classic nun outfit, like penguin suit nun,
like the frock, like
yeah,
what they
full on
wear.
nun outfit. So then,
was it a sexy nun? No. Damn it.
Regular nun.
Ah.
So his life's not going very well, and so he starts to get into stage acting. Doing more of like
plays?
theaters and plays. And his reputation catches up with him because he's still doing drugs and alcohol. And then people in New York hear about what he was doing in LA.
Oh shit!
And they're like, "We're done with you two now."
Fuck. So both the West Coast and East Coast are now done.
We're done with you.
Only production companies are like either.
We're all done with you.
Boom boom.
So it gets really bad for him. He gets married a few times, divorced a few times. He has a couple kids, but like he's never there for them. It's really sad. And then finally, After bad luck of bad luck, he ODs. He overdoses. He's found dead in an abandoned tenement village in the East Village of a heroin overdose. He's found by a couple of school children, and because of the way records were back then, no one knew who he was, because his own family knew how he was, so they weren't quite keeping in touch with him. So he was buried in an unmarked grave on Hart Island outside of New York. And one thing I thought was interesting, this is the best way to put it, is this is a quote from Bobby Driscoll. He said, "I was brought out on a silver platter and then dumped in the trash." This is Bobby Driscoll said that.
Oh my god.
Yep. And then so he also another interesting
me.
fact about Bobby Driscoll is he actually won an Oscar back in 1949 for outstanding juvenile actor.
I think you're gonna say best Jew actor goes to Bobby Driscoll.
So
get up here, Bobby.
So he won an Oscar for best juvenile actor, and his family didn't even know he's dead until like a year later. They put out like, where is he?
Holy shit.
So he's in an unmarked grave on Hart Island, and no one can move the body because the body's just basically full of like, they thought he was just some homeless guy. They had no idea who he was.
Some say you can still hear Mickey Mouse laughing at.
So this is where a lot of people are apparently really upset. I'm not sure if this changed recently, but people are upset because apparently Disney has like their own Hall of Fame, and Bobby Driscoll isn't in it.
Damn.
And there's like a campaign. I watched a documentary about Bobby Driscoll, and the point of the documentary was like, put him in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be there. He's the voice of Peter Pan. He's the main kid in Song of the South, and he was what was the other movie I said he did? Oh, he was damn it, we forgot it. I forgot again.
Jim Hawkins.
Jim Hawkins. He was Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island, and that was how his life ended. And I think it's really sad, and it goes to show how children were treated in Hollywood. Like, this is the first really big child star, and this is what happened to him. This is the first Disney star.
Damn.
So by looking at this, I think Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez are doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, no, like anytime you can like escape that fucking meat grinder, like even a little bit, like sane, you're doing your best, because no one should. I don't think anyone should really be famous, because it's not a real way of living. But I think it's like child abuse when you have like a famous child, and like everyone is like you shouldn't live your life. Imagine trying to live your life under a microscope as an adult, but then now the whole world is watching you from day one, like however whenever like they finally get you in like the machine, like you're
he was real young. He was getting a haircut when he was like 5 or 6, and the barber's like, "Your son's very cute. He should go to Hollywood." And the parents like, "Okay," and that's how he got in Hollywood.
Damn.
Yeah. Apparently that barber knew somebody, and that's how he got in.
Shit.
Yeah.
So, like,
weird how it works to get discovered and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you're hot, you're hot.
I just thought that was really sad, and I thought that was just worth saying. Like,
movie,
how this child is, how he was treated. It's horrible.
Yeah, no, like there's no winners in this. There's no winners in any of this.
And I didn't know any of this until I started doing research into Song of the South. When we watched the movie, I clicked on his IMDb just to get an idea of what his deal was, and I saw how young he died, and that's when I found all this horribleness about him.
Yeah,
this poor guy.
Yeah, no, like you can only try your best, but it's like they only care about their profit and what you can do for them. So once like you said, once he's not cute anymore, like
he's not cute anymore,
like you're done. You're absolutely done. So I think we've hit like all the things that we got out of this movie.
Yeah.
More importantly, do we think you should watch it? Honestly, if you have a morbid curiosity for like what we're talking about, maybe you think like maybe they're full of shit, maybe Damon's looking too much into like all of this like southern, maybe it's not that bad. Make your own fucking opinion.
Yeah.
Like you watch it, like do what you want. And how do we find it? You know how to find it. Like it's 2020.
If you don't know how to find it, then
you're stupid.
Then don't watch it. Like just don't. It's not worth watching. It's not worth anything. Like I think that's actually Disney's handled it well. I think Bob Iger, the last president, was just like, it's antiquated. It's not how we are. And also, I mean, you can't hold anyone at Disney accountable for this now. Like, this movie was made in 1946.
Yeah,
I'm not one to defend Disney, but like,
not at all.
They don't today deserve any hate for it. And I think this movie is kind of where it should be.
And also too, like, to give credit to like the American public for every time when the movie was initially released, like people were like, this is fucked up. 1946 was fucked up. 1970 was fucked up. 1980, people were like, this is still very fucked up. Like, why are you? It wasn't just black people that were like up in arms. Like, a good portion of Americans like, this is getting bad. Like, Uncle Remus sounds the way he sounds. Briar Rabbit sounds the way he sounds. Like, this is not doing anything good for the image of black people at this point. So kudos to like people being like protesting this movie and being like, no, this should just be something that we look back on as like, you know, you shouldn't try to bury history. You shouldn't try to like be like, oh, this never happened, doesn't exist. You should be informed about it, but it's like, I don't know. I'm glad that it exists, because we were able to see like a little like time capsule into the thinking of what they thought was okay to to basically make it the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm glad we were able to see, like, oh, they thought just making everything pretty would be enough, and how can you get mad about like a white boy and a black man look, a black man and a white boy have a friendship together, and look, this cartoons. It's like, no, like this is so problematic.
Yeah, and also the stereotype you're gonna bring up, it's the wise little black man stereotype.
Yeah.
Magical too, because apparently his stories are so powerful they can heal concussions.
Yeah, no, they can heal concussions. They can bring you to alternate reality. He can pass on his delusion to you. Like, who knows? Also, let us know what fan theory you think is right. Is it my fan theory where he's just passing on like his delusional thinking to like the children that have trauma, or is it Kevin's fan theory where Briar Rabbit's feeding them to Briar Bear and Briar Fox?
That's what he's doing. Briar Rabbit is leading the lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah, no, like you can vote on that and we figure out how the fuck to tally the votes. You know, it's the first episode. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is a black and white review.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
My name's Damon. I'm black.
My name's Kevin, and I'm white.
Deuces.